West Hill United is a progressive spiritual community where how you live is more important than what you believe. West Hill United is a people, a place, an idea. We are a community living out of a progressive faith, striving to make a positive difference in our own lives, the lives of others, and the world. Join us Sundays at 10:30 a.m. or connect with us at any time.
There are 94 calls to action in total, with the 5 explicit calls to action for the churches, which ran the residential schools. I might point out that in our church, we read every one of these calls to action week after week after week. And I was so proud that we did. We chose Call to Action 61 because it demonstrates some of the explicit responses that our Indigenous neighbors have told us are necessary to redress the legacy of residential schools and advance the process of reconciliation. Call to Action 61 from the Truth and Reconciliation Report. We call upon church parties to the settlement agreement in collaboration with survivors and representatives of Aboriginal organizations to establish permanent funding to Aboriginal people for 1. Community-controlled healing and reconciliation projects, community-controlled culture and language revitalization projects, community-controlled education and relationship building projects, regional dialogues for Indigenous spiritual leaders and youth to discuss Indigenous spirituality, self-determination, and reconciliation, offered as wisdom for the journey.
May we walk in its love.
Light. Thamer Linklater is a member of the Nishawashik Cree Nation and is a survivor of the child welfare system in Manitoba. She recently graduated from the University of Winnipeg with a BA in English and is now working on her Master's in Indigenous Studies at Trent University. She wrote this poem as a lament for the suffering caused by colonization through the residential school systems 1 year ago for the National Day for Truth and Reconciliation. Here is a poem for Truth and Reconciliation by Thamer Linklater. We are the granddaughters of survivors. We are the nieces of people who never came home. I got it. This entire year has been excruciating for us. Not like a punch to the stomach, one you don't see coming, taking your breath all at once, but like an avalanche, the slow collection of snow on a mountaintop, until one day, a sound sets off a cascade, wrecking everything in its path. We saw the buildings snow. Our bodies knew the horrors untold. You see, we live near the mountains. Towns, however, that are crushed by snow are shielded by walls and roads, existing so far away from the mountaintops. A sea of orange now floods the landscape. T-shirts, banners, signs, handprints, taking up the space cleared by snow. Some wear the color to commemorate grandparents, aunts, uncles, cousins. Some wear the color to honor the childhood that was stolen from them. Some wear the color as a sign of atonement, refusing to let history be buried. Some wear the color to blend in, using apologies, holidays, and shirts to cover the gap. Meanwhile, pipelines, legal action, and police raids tear the rift further and further apart. We are the granddaughters and grandsons of survivors. We are the nieces and nephews of those who never came home. We are part of the avalanche. We had our hearts unburied with every child found. Where do you fit in this story unfolded? Offered as wisdom for the journey.
May we walk in its light.
We're next going to hear a solo by Babette, and the song's name is We'll Weave a Love. And I believe if you've been in the choir over the past few years, you may find it familiar. A while ago, Greta passed her weaving loom on to someone else, and she made a loom out of a silverware box cabinet, like that you open up and put your knives and forks in, and out of just things around the house. And so for the first time, I got to see an intricate picture of weaving and the different colors and the different tension and how long it took. And so this song I thought was appropriate for this focus this Sunday, because pictures have been woven into our history, and now we are weaving, and we are bringing the colors, and we are bringing the type of thread and the tension of the thread, and we might make a mistake and have to go back, but this song is saying we will weave a love into the tapestry.
We'll weave a love that greens sure as spring, then deepens in summer to the harvest fall brings, resting still in winter to spiral again. Together, my friends, we'll weave on, we'll weave on. We'll weave a love that opens our eyes to see one another beyond all disguise, where our trust like water will wash away lies. Together, my friends, we'll weave on, we'll weave on. A love that heals, friend, that bends, friend, that rising, then turning, then yields, friend, like the mountain to rain, or frost in the spring, or darkness that turns into dawn. It's by turning, 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 my friends, by turning that love moves on. We'll weave a love that touches our pain, that comes like the water to the drought-fevered plains, so the roots once withered sing praise to the rain. Together, my friends, we'll weave on, we'll weave on. We'll weave a love with roots growing deep and sap pushing branches to wake from their sleep, bearing leaves burnt umber with morning's full sweep. Together, my friends, we'll weave on, we'll weave on. A love that heals, friend, that bends, friend, that rising, then turning, then yields, friend, like mountain to rain, or frost in the spring, or darkness that turns into dawn. It's by turning, 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 my friends, by turning that love moves on. It's by turning that love moves on.
And the poet says, what is your role in all of this? Today we are commemorating National Day for Truth and Reconciliation, and I wonder what my role is in all of this. In Thamer Linklater's gut-wrenching poem, written for the first National Day of Truth and Reconciliation a year ago, she ends the poem by asking everyone, what is their role in this? Why are you wearing orange today? She starts, however, by naming the pain she and her relations bear because of the crimes against humanity that were perpetrated through the residential schools. And she compares it to being buried by an avalanche, wrecking everything in its path. And I think she's referring to the horrifying news of the past couple of years of the mass graves that were beginning to be found at former residential schools. And so that's why they dedicates the poems also not only to her grandparents who are survivors of the genocide, but also to her aunts and uncles who never came home. We are the granddaughters of survivors. We are the nieces of the people who never came home. This tells the pain and the damage caused by colonization in residential schools. And I must answer, what is my role in all of this? And even though I myself never set foot in a residential school, I still must declare my role in this. My ancestors tried to eliminate Indigenous peoples, and that's the truth if we're speaking of truth and reconciliation. My mother was a social worker in rural Manitoba in the 1950s. It'd be almost a miracle if she wasn't removing children from their homes. But it doesn't matter if you had a relative or an ancestor who was directly involved in the residential schools, whether a representative of the church or a representative of the government. Everyone must still answer, what is my role in this? And if we, as we say at West Hill United, if we're committed to the well-being of the web of life, then everyone must answer to what their role is in this. If you live in Canada or the US or anywhere like that, you're living on stolen lands, Australia and all over Africa, in Asia, you must answer what your role is in all of this. If you're in the UK or elsewhere in Europe, then it's your ancestors who sailed across the ocean to steal the land. King Charles III must answer to what his role is in all of this. And this was brought into stark relief on my Facebook feed when the Queen died. There's a very different response to the Queen's death from settler folk when compared to Indigenous folk. Remember, the treaties are signed by the Queen Victoria and between Queen Victoria and Indigenous peoples. Remember that this is the web of life. We are responsible for one another. It doesn't matter where we are or where they are. There is no innocence here. Because of our interconnectedness, because of our entanglement, it is all of our responsibility. It doesn't matter who you are or where you live. Part of the truth that we must proclaim is that we participated, or our ancestors participated, in a crime against humanity. And we cannot look for technicalities that might let us off the hook. Because some wear the color to blend in, using apologies, holidays, and shirts to cover the gap. That must not be our role. We must not wear orange as to blend in. We must not wear orange as a move to innocence. We must not claim innocence, but we also must not wallow in guilt either. It's a difficult line to walk. I know I'm saying some hard things, and it's difficult to hear, but my goal is not to make you feel bad. I'm just trying to face the truth. Because some wear the color as a sign of atonement, refusing to let history be buried. And that's part of what we must do. We must wear orange as a sign of atonement. We must refuse to let the history be buried. We must face the truth, not in guilt. I don't want anyone to feel bad. Of course we feel guilty, and that's okay. How can one not? But we cannot live too long in that guilt. We must not make it about ourselves and our pain and our guilt. We must resist blending in. We must not just wear orange to blend in and cover the gap, because some wear the color to blend in, using apologies, holidays, and shirts to cover the gap. And we must not do that. We can't wear orange as a performance. The fact that we're wearing orange must mean something. And one way in which it might mean something is to wear orange in the spirit of making amends. To wear orange to motivate us to repair the damage done to the web of life. We wear orange to spur us to reconciliation. Because reconciliation requires action. Harlan Pruden, a very charming Lakota Sioux scholar and activist at a conference a few years ago, introduced this idea to me. And he said, we don't need reconciliation. He said, what we really need is reconciliation. He was saying that, yeah, we got to admit the wrongs that were committed, but even when we do that and apologize for them, that's insufficient. We need action. We need reconciliation. We must make amends for crimes committed. And he also pointed out that the action must come from the colonizers. It's not like there was a dispute and both sides need to say they're sorry. Wrongs were committed by European nations, and in Canada that means England and France, but around the world it includes Holland, Spain, and Belgium and other countries. European nations through colonization inflicted great harm, even genocide on indigenous peoples around the world. And what Harlan Pruden was saying is that we need reconciliation to atone for these crimes. All this is pointing to reparations. Wrongs were committed by European settlers, and so we, as their ancestors, must make amends. We must make repairs. Reparations must be part of any reconciliation. We cannot have right relationship if we do not take action to repair the damage we cause to the web of life. And the poet pointed out that we can't hide behind an apology, but an apology, when we look at it, is more than just saying you're sorry. And we've said sorry several times. The United Church has apologized for its role 3 times. And about a few years ago, Stephen Harper, Prime Minister of Canada, Stephen Harper, apologized for Canada's role in residential schools and colonization. But that's not the end of it. An apology is more than just words. And psychologist Susan B. Phillips, and she wrote in Psychology Today, and the link should be in the e-blast that you're going to get, she says that there are 6 requirements for an apology to lead to reconciliation. She says the apology must restore self-respect and dignity. The apology must reaffirm and reset the shared values of both parties. The apology must make clear that the offense was not the victim's fault. The apology must restore physical safety in a relationship. The apology includes reparation for harm caused by the offense. And the apology includes being willing to suffer the consequences of the offense. So there must be a conscious confessions of the wrongs that were committed. And we've done a lot of that work through this truth and reconciliation. And I think the folks in this community that I've seen understand that they understand the truth part. We're getting there. But we also must be part of these reparations, these repairs. There must be action taken to repair, to atone for the harm caused. And Call to Action 61, which we heard a few minutes ago, listed some of the repairs that churches might make. Things like healing projects and language revitalization projects. And the United Church of Canada must participate in these things. And I will say that the United Church in Canada is trying to participate in these things. And so, we need to hold them accountable and along with ourselves. But I think what I saw from this is important is that each of the instructions said that these initiatives must be community controlled. That is, controlled by Indigenous communities. We must not impose our notions of repairs on Indigenous people. We must listen to our Indigenous neighbors. We must follow them to reconciliation. We must respond to their needs in reconciliation. These reparations are going to be challenging, and they're going to cost money. And we're going to have to suffer a little bit to make these repairs happen. But the financial burden must be low on our list of priorities. We must put the well-being of our Indigenous neighbors ahead of any financial concerns. And this sounds so daunting, it sounds so difficult, but true reconciliation, even though it sounds impossible, we don't know that. We don't know that it's impossible. The future is open to us. Of course, this isn't going to happen overnight. Reparations and reconciliation will be challenging, but it must be our goal. And so we wear orange as a sign of atonement, but also to spur us to reconciliation. We wear orange to commit to making repairs. We wear orange for the possibility of healing. We wear orange for the possibility of a new world. Peace.
Become a sustaining champion of West Hill United's work by committing to an automatic monthly donation. Learn more or donate now through Canada Helps.